Never in my life have I needed something so much and never known until I received it.
Greetings, viewers! Night here, bringing you another review. I know we just had a review of DuckTales, but you know what they say, you can never have too much of a good thing. And this has to be one of the best two-parters the series has ever had. So the first episode I ever reviewed introduced us to Drake Mallard, who took up the mantle of Darkwing for reals after the movie deal where he'd be playing the character literally fell apart. And you can argue with me on this, but I don't think Moonvasion did it much justice. But this is the two-part episode, not just Darkwing, but Launchpad also get a chance to shine. Scrooge is taking his nephews to St. Canard, because the scientist Tourist Bulba has a great new invention that he needs to show off. One of his financial directors, Bradford Buzzard, tries to discourage Scrooge, but the old duck insists.
Dr. Bulba may be a bit unorthodox, but his lab is cutting edge. If he says he's onto something big, I trust him.
His latest project is supposed to be revolutionary. Profitable!
Reckless. Mr. McDuck, Bulba's experiments are worthless pipe dreams. Better not to deal with him.
Yes, fine. Thank you, Bradford. Short-sighted old buzzard. There's no reward without a little risk. Bradford doesn't know how things work.
I'm still on the phone.
I love that. I think we've all been in a call where we talk negatively about someone without realizing they can still hear us. Launchpad and Dewey are excited to be in St. Canard, since it means they'll get to meet with Drake, who apparently not only has moved into this city, but into a bridge tower, which has been decked out to resemble Darkwing's lair from the original show, complete with an AI named Wanda. All of Drake's equipment has been supplied by Fan Crackshell, aka Gizmoduck, which I kinda find funny, since in the original show, Darkwing had a one-sided rivalry with him. And while the reboot does have this gag of Fenton missing out everyone who's discovered his identity as Gizmoduck, it's ambiguous as to whether or not Drake is among them. Post-editing note. Drake, in fact, does not know that Fenton and Gizmoduck are the same person. And apparently Fenton told Drake he also dislikes Gizmoduck, for what reason I don't know. But yeah, throughout the second half of the episode, there's this running gag of Fenton calling Drake, while doing superhero stuff as Gizmoduck, and Drake being none the wiser. I guess that little detail just survived me. Unfortunately, while Drake may be ready to bust crime, Mayor Zane Allison has taken the city that has the most amount of crime anywhere and stamped it out completely. So, like in the original cartoon, Drake is prone to making mistakes in his eagerness to stop what he perceives as a burglary, only to realize his mistake afterwards and assist the movers he just attacked, while Launchpad and Dewey watch the sidelines.
Scrooge McDuck, what a momentous honor! Ooh, let's take a picture.
So, if you watched the original Darkwing show and are aware of Tourist Bulba, you'll notice a significant difference between the one that was voiced by Tim Curry and the version here voiced by James Monroe Whitehart. The original Bulba was a Kingpin type of character played completely straight, with the only comedic aspect of his character being that he operated while still in prison and the warden being oblivious to it. Here, Bulba's a completely friendly scientist, eager to show off for others. It honestly kind of works for the character, I'm not gonna lie. Since those of us who grew up watching the old show, or more likely, caught episodes of the original cartoon online, we know this is a facade, but the in-universe characters don't yet. I was sort of disappointed that they didn't get Kevin Michael Richardson to voice Bulba because I felt that his burly tone fit the character design, but James does a pretty good job. Bulba shows off the Ramrod, a machine he claims can make matter from nothing. Huey doesn't quite buy it because you can't make something from nothing, and for the first half of this episode, it's his goal to figure out how the Ramrod works. Although, as I might point out here, in this version of DuckTales, Scrooge has lengthened his own life by various means, granted his own parents immortality, the Duck family has a ghost butler, have experienced the mystical and fantastical several times before, and have fought alien invaders. When they've encountered the impossible and improbable several times before, saying that matter can't be made from nothing seems kind of contradictory. Or maybe I'm just being nitpicky here. Having failed to find any crime to stop, Drake is pretty much ready to give up.
How can I be a crime fighter when there's no crime? I just wanted to inspire people, you know? make a difference.
While the original Darkwing did ultimately believe in doing the right thing, he was originally driven by ego and wanted to be praised and celebrated as a hero. In fact, it was his ego that led to his downfall on the planet. Wanting to bust a major criminal, Darkwing thought if he stopped Bulba's men from robbing a train, it would make his career. Unfortunately, the conductor mistook him for a train robber, and Bulba used this to his advantage in Part 2, luring Darkwing into a trap where he'd be arrested. This made Darkwing admit to himself that helping people should be his priority as a hero, rather than be praised for fighting crime. Darkwing still had his ego, but he would feel guilty and even quit if it meant his ego could get innocent people hurt. While I'm not saying Drake is completely different from the original Darkwing, his priorities and motive for being a superhero are. It's clear that his main motive is to inspire and help people, rather than be popular. It seems Darkwing's career isn't quite over yet, since Launchpad points out someone breaking into Bulba's lab. Someone who turns out to be a little girl. While Drake does stop her from whatever she was willing to do with the Ramrod, she manages to escape, and Drake, Launchpad, and Dewey are caught in her place. However, the three are pardoned, and Darkwing is honored by Hero by Bulba and the Mayor. That evening, while Dewey is live streaming at Darkwing's hideout, they find that the girl has managed to locate and get into the tower. Not only was she able to correctly guess where Darkwing's hideout was, but she also points out that it was partially easy due to Louis live streaming.
Yeah. Sweet gear.
Yeah, as you can probably have guessed by now, this is the DuckTales version of Gosalyn. I still think it's weird how the Triplets and Webby have teenagery voices despite clearly being preteens, but it's somehow worse with Gosalyn, who's voiced by Stephanie Beatrice. I'm not entirely sure why, but maybe it has something to do with the design and how the character keeps her stubborn and headstrong personality. Like in the original pilot, Gosalyn is the granddaughter of Thaddeus Weddlemeyer, who was the man who created the Ramrod and went mysteriously missing. And Gosalyn believes Bulba is responsible. When Drake says he can't risk someone's reputation without proof, Gosalyn gets mad and storms off, only to be stopped by Dewey.
I know what it's like to search for someone that's missing, and I know what it means to have someone believe you. Let me be your Webby.
Who?
I mean, we'll Dewey it!
Does that mean you'll help?
Let's gaz for it, Gosalyn!
Please stop.
It really wouldn't surprise me if people ship these two after this. Launchpad also convinces Drake to investigate Bulba's lab, reminding him the reason he became Darkwing in the first place was for the sake of helping people, and right now Gosalyn needs his help. Huey convinces Scrooge and Louie that they need to know how the Ramrod works, and Bulba willingly, although at first hesitantly, gives them the files. While going through the files, Huey finds a symbol used by the madman Salego, who believed that every work of fiction was a gateway to another dimension. This is a reference to the comic exclusive storyline where Salego was an ancient sorcerer and crossed over between every Disney Afternoon property. Other people have pointed this out, but I'm surprised no one's mentioned the Darkwing episode where Darkwing and Negavolt hop into what is supposed to be our reality, where their universe is just a TV show. So yeah, the Ramrod doesn't make matter from nothing, but rather pulls matter from other universes. It's also revealed that the longer the rift created by the Ramrod stays open, the more unstable and dangerous it becomes. While that's going on, Drake is confronted by Bulba in his office, while Gosalyn hides out of sight. Bulba admits that Thaddeus created the Ramrod, and claims he died in a lab accident while trying to reprogram it, insisting that it posed some sort of danger. Bulba claims he kept the accident secret so that Thaddeus' name wouldn't be smeared, but Gosalyn doesn't buy it and attacks Bulba, and steals the key that works the machine. Gosalyn insists that her grandfather didn't die in a lab accident, and was instead sent to a different dimension, meaning she's known what the Ramrod could do all along. Bulba scoffs at this, saying even if that was what happened, leaving the rift open by the Ramrod to search infinite universes, to search for him for too long would be dangerous, which contradicts what he said earlier about the Ramrod being completely safe to use. Realizing he's given himself away, Bulba shows his true colors.
For I will let you go to another dimension!
And because as I know people will question why I didn't cover this. Yes, during a fight that breaks out, Bulba is scarred by the ramrod and one of his horns gets blown off. Goslin escapes out one of the windows, and while Drake does manage to hold his own and fight against Bulba on one of the scaffolds, Bulba tosses Goslin off and Drake has to use his cape as a parachute to save her. While they do land safely, a now maddened Bulba uses the ramrod to pull in reinforcements from the Darkwing universe. Megavolt, Quackerjack, Bushroot, and the Liquidator, the Fearsome Four. The team debuted in a two-part episode of Season 2 of Darkwing, led by Negaduck, but since Jim Starlin hasn't been seen since the end of The Dark Knight Returns, here Bulba assumes the role as leader. This is what got a lot of people hyped, although I should really address the plant duck monster in the room. While 3 members of the Fearsome Four maintained their designs and personalities, Bushroot is drastically different here. In the original show, Dr. Original Bushroot became a villain out of tragic circumstances, being a scientist to believe that by splicing animal and plant DNA, people would be able to take nutrients from the sun. When funding was cut for his experiment, Reginald used himself as the guinea pig. It worked, but not without the side effect of physically changing Reginald into a plant duck mutant. It also gave them the ability to telepathically communicate and control plants. While he is one of the villains on the Darkwing show, Bushroot never took joy in committing crimes, doing so only because he felt society rejected and mistreated him, as well as to cure his crippling loneliness. This Bushroot looks practically dead inside and out, looking completely dried up with blanked eyes, and only emits piercing screams like a beast. However, since he's able to work with his teammates, it could be that there's enough of who he once was inside, and this is the trope of, and I must scream. Lastly, the last time the original voice actor for Bushroot, Tino Insana, was in 2017 before his passing. I assume the writers chose not to recast Bushroot out of respect, in much the same way Rolf the Dog went voiceless for years after the death of Jim Henson. Wow, that got depressing. When part 2 begins, we see Bushroot's vines all over the St. Canard Bridge, preventing entry or exit. While Gizmoduck is doing his best against the vines, the mayor makes a public plea for Darkwing to come to the city's rescue.
All right, Darkwing, what's the play?
DW's been waiting for this moment his whole life.
Well, after careful deliberation and strategizing, I've come to a well-researched conclusion. We are doomed!
Yeah, it turns out trying to bust regular crime is different from tangling with 3 mutants that can manipulate plants, produce electricity, and are sentient water. Drake and Launchpad rightfully freak out, but Goslin insists they should still try and fight the villains to protect the city. After throwing the nephews in the holding cell, Bulba receives a visit from Bradford. Turns out Bulba was working with Fowl to further their goals in secret, and Bulba's latest actions have complicated things, as well as could reveal the existence of Fowl to the Duck family. Fowl agents have appeared a few times in Season 3, but have always managed to avoid Scrooge and his family discovering who they are. Bradford's made clear that their goal isn't so much world domination, but global larceny. I like how it's revealed that this Bulba was a Fowl agent the whole time. While in the original show, Fowl revived Bulba as a cyborg after he'd been caught in an explosion in the pilot, so he could be their ultimate agent. And not only did Bulba refuse to join them, but threatened to kill the Fowl High Command. Feeling that Bradford's too close-minded, Bulba has his henchmen knock him out and lock him up with the boys. The Trippers managed to pick the locks of their cells and set off to explore the building looking for their Uncle Scrooge. Bradford following behind while secretly sending for one of his agents to come pick him up. Drake, Launchpad, and Goslin have found Quackerjack playing around in an old abandoned warehouse, and while Drake and Launchpad are distracted by nostalgia, Goslin sneaks away to confront the Mad Clown on her own. Quite possibly the worst thing she could do, especially since Quackerjack has managed to build a giant mecha of himself and uses it to pursue the 3. And it's here I have to ask, just how long have the Fearsome Four been running around in St. Canard since they were brought here? If Quackerjack had the time to build this thing. They managed to lose Quackerjack, but are then attacked by a Liquidator. Meanwhile in Bulba's lab, Bradford and the boys come across a sleeping Bushroot.
Perhaps we should just stay put instead of confronting the dangerous plant men?
It's the only way forward. Besides, we can handle it. We are adventurers!
Well, Sonny, did you ever consider that not everything should be a fun adventure?
All the time, but no one listens, so it's no use.
Dewey unfortunately wakes Bushroot up and he attacks them, managing to grab Bradford by the ankle with one of his vines. Bradford, understandably, rages about how the McDuck clan have endangered Duckburg and the world as a whole with their adventuring. And while he does manage to compose himself, this little outburst has raised the boys' suspicions of him, as was the communicator they see in his hand. After managing to escape Liquidator, Drake isn't pleased with Goslin wanting to rush back into danger.
If you're fighting crime under my roof and using my smoke bombs, you will play by my rules. And if you won't listen, then you are staying here until this is all over.
You can't make me. You're not my family.
Since Launchpad's been treating things like they're a family matter, he tells her that Drake has been up long hours of the night talking with Fenton about searching for her grandfather, refusing to accept that fighting him may be hopeless. This gives Goslin new appreciation for Drake, and they have a sweet moment before Wanda informs Drake that the Ramrod has been activated again. Not wanting to put Goslin in danger, Drake goes alone and is immediately captured.
Oh, good, you're all here. Maybe you could attack me one at a time, or...
Discovering what he's done, Goslin and Launchpad go to rescue him, and we get this wonderful scene.
Jambalaya Jake and the Bugmaster come to help take out our nemesis, Darkwing Duck.
Ah, C-string villains. You recognize him?
We done tussled with that purple polecat like a gator in a henhouse. Woo-wee!
Ah, the more the merrier.
Having managed to find the room where the Ramrod is being held, Bradford and the boys discover Bulba through Scrooge into the 1987 version of DuckTales.
Bless me bagpipes! A sea monster ate my ice cream!
I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like David Tennant as Scrooge, but I genuinely feel Alan Young had better delivery.
A sea monster ate my ice cream!
Bradford is discovered by the boys, and he tosses them into the same dimension as his uncle. Before he can trap them, however, Bradford goes into hiding when he hears Bulba and his men approaching. Bulba intends to announce himself to the world, using the Ramrod as a demonstration of its reality-bending powers, and having the fearsome four destroy Darkwing Duck to show what will happen to those who oppose them. Getting into the lab was easy, but Goslin is starting to have doubts, realizing how dangerous this all actually is, and Launchpad restores her confidence with this speech.
Yeah, and sometimes you lose. He knows that better than anybody. Anyone can do the right thing when it's easy, but it's what you do when things are hard that makes you a hero.
Using one of Darkwing's smoke bombs, Goslin gives Launchpad cover to free Drake and to do go up against the Fearsome Four, while Goslin searches for her grandfather, releasing Scrooge and the boys in the process. During the battle, the Ramrod's rift becomes too unstable to remain open, threatening to destroy the very fabric of reality. Goslin chooses to destroy the machine. While the Fearsome Four get sucked back into their dimension, and Bulba is rendered unconscious by the machine's explosion, Scrooge and the boys discover Bradford boarding a helicopter piloted by Black Heron with the foul insignia on it, revealing that he's a member of the organization. Seeing that there's no way he can hide it anymore, Bradford promises the McDuck family that their adventuring is about to come to an end. With everything back to normal, Drake promises Goslin he'll try to help her find her grandfather, since he knows one or two geniuses through Launchpad. He also asks if she'd like to be his crime-fighting partner, which may or may not be his offer to adopt her like he did in the original show. And just like in the original show's run, Launchpad is determined to be a part of this new family, saying he'll work in Duckburg during the day and commute to St. Canard to work with Darkwing at night. While this isn't a season finale, it has all the grandiose of one. I believe it does deserve some of the hype it gets, but I've also seen a video pointing out its shortcomings and I can't completely disagree. Just like in The Duck Knight Returns, we sort of get an answer about how Launchpad fits into the worlds of DuckTales and Darkwing by combining them. And I think the whole alternate dimension element of this special may be in reference to Darkwing Duck creator Tad Stones, saying he doesn't consider Darkwing Duck a spin-off of DuckTales, but rather takes place in an alternate dimension that just so happens to have DuckTales characters in it. Or at least that's my understanding. A common theme in both shows is family, which works very nicely and can get you emotionally invested in the characters, despite them being cartoon waterfowl. And this is something that the DuckTales reboot gets praised for. Speaking of reboots, I've heard people say that this could be a backdoor pilot for a Darkwing Duck spin-off. While that sounds cool and everything, unless the writers can somehow bring back the Fearsome Four, I don't see it happening. On the other side of the coin, this episode does seem to build up to a future confrontation with Val, now that Scrooge is aware one of his financial consultants is associated with the group he once fought against. While I did like seeing Steelbeak and the Phantom Blot at the end of Season 2, none of the Val episodes have really done anything to wow me. John R. Rockaduck appears in one episode, seemingly as just an afterthought and to fill the half hour of the show, and we've yet to see what Gandrody contributes to the group. Hopefully we'll be getting something that's worthy of this reveal. Now I'm going to be honest. While I've always been a fan of the Darkwing character, I never really cared much for Launchpad or Gosalyn as a kid, though the reboot in this episode have changed my opinion on them. Launchpad is what I feel the Dimwit character done right, in that his naivety hasn't really had a negative effect on anyone around him yet, and it's more just part of his personality than the writers just wanting to use a dumb characters to get kids to laugh. He does come off as a bit oblivious of the whole family gimmick, but that's mainly because he does genuinely care about the people around him, comforting Gosalyn when she needs it, and telling Drake what he needs to hear whenever he's feeling conflicted. While Gosalyn does have the traits of her 1990s character, here she's a bit more serious. In the original pilot, she seemed to have come to terms with the fact that her grandfather had died. Here, I could see people arguing that her portrayal has been to give her a tragic intro to the series. I, however, feel it's balanced out by Dewey, Launchpad, and Drake being a source of comedy, understanding, and comfort to her, especially when she has to make a great personal sacrifice on her part to keep the world safe. Basically, applying what Launchpad said in his speech to her earlier. I've already gone over why Drake's motivations for being a hero are different from the original Darkwings, so instead I'll talk about his relationship with Gosalyn. They show signs of having a father-daughter dynamic, but I can't agree with others when they say that the writing doesn't quite match the emotional bond of the original pilot. In the original pilot, Darkwing spends enough time around Gosalyn to grow fond of the girl and feel genuine regret when he's failed to protect her from Bulba. He's also terrified that Gosalyn might be targeted when Bulba returns as a cyborg. Here, while Drake does have some elements of his 1990s relationship with Gosalyn, it somehow feels like the runtime ironically doesn't allow us too much time to focus on it. And I feel that's because while this story may be about Darkwing Duck, it's still an episode of DuckTales. And we need to switch back and forth between what Darkwing is doing and what the other characters are doing. Though I will admit, the fact that Drake spent sleepless nights searching for ways to bring Thaddeus Wallenmeyer back for Gosalyn says quite a bit about his moral character. And Gosalyn has to admit that Drake was right about how fighting criminals isn't just some sort of game. I'm not sure how much of a memorable character Taurus Bulba was in the original show, but he clearly left enough of an impact for the writers to bring him back. If he returns, I'm interested in seeing if he'll have the same luck he's did in the original pilot, try to bring back the Fearsome Four to be his henchmen again, or a combination of both. I always had wanted to see Darkwing villains mixed back when I was a kid, and this two-part episode gave me exactly what I wanted all those years ago. Overall, I loved this episode the first time I watched it, and I feel it's earned its rightful place as one of my favorites in the series so far. This is Night Eye saying thanks for letting me share my thoughts. Please share yours with me.